Waking to the damp chill, I felt the familiar ache behind my eyes. The air hung heavy, metallic, and antiseptic, clinging to the cold tile. Gripping the heavy brass key in my pocket, its weight a small comfort. I pushed a supply cart down the long, flickering corridor. The fluorescent lights hummed, buzzing with an uneven rhythm, casting long, dancing shadows. A stillness settled. Rounding a corner, I saw the orderly, leaning against a wall. His eyes rolled back, a wide, unnatural smile fixed on his face. His voice, usually gruff, came out in a low, distorted cadence. The red band patients aren't supposed to walk. If they do, keep walking. He blinked, the smile vanishing, his eyes snapping back to normal. Morning, Tvero. Long shift, huh? He pushed off the wall, whistling a tuneless melody, and continued down the hall, oblivious. I watched him go. A cold dread settled in my chest, a familiar companion. The floor beneath my worn boots began to ripple. Not a reflection, but the solid linoleum itself, shifting like dark, viscous water. The liquid floor swallowed the light, then spat it back out, distorting the reflections of the flickering bulbs. The metallic tang in the air sharpened, tasting of old blood and ozone. The clock on the wall, its hands frozen at an impossible angle, seemed to tick louder, mocking the silence. Pushing the cart forward, I tried to ignore the shifting linoleum. The wheels groaned, a sound too loud, too close. The fluorescent lights above flickered, not just unevenly, but out of sync with their own hum. One bulb pulsed, a deep, sickly red, then snapped back to white, leaving a faint afterimage on my retina. The metallic tang in the air now carried a faint, sweet rot, a scent that clung to the back of my throat, promising something worse. A stillness settled, heavy and cold. Should I follow the rule, keep walking, or observe this new distortion? Risk breaking protocol. I knew the task only delayed escalation. Gripping the heavy brass key in my pocket, its cold weight a familiar anchor, I continued my route. Each step felt like wading through thick oil. The silence between the buzzing lights stretched, taut and expectant. Ahead, the corridor seemed to stretch, the walls subtly bowing inward, the perspective wrong. The shadows lengthened, twisting into impossible shapes, dancing with a life of their own, waiting. Pushing the cart forward, I felt the floor subtly resist, like pushing through thick, cold syrup. The air grew heavier, the sweet rot now cloying, almost suffocating. Ahead, a section of the corridor gleamed, the linoleum polished to a mirror sheen, reflecting the erratic pulse of the red-tinged fluorescent lights. A stillness settled, thick and unmoving. Glancing down, I saw my reflection. It was a beat behind. My left foot, already planted, still hung in the air in the reflection. My mirrored self, a phantom, moved with a subtle, sickening delay. Reaching out, I touched the cart's cold metal frame, my reflection's hand meeting the mirrored cart a fraction of a second later. A ghost of my own action, confirming the sickening desynchronization. Stepping back, I watched my reflection. It took a full, agonizing second for it to mimic my retreat, its eyes wide, fixed on a point just beyond my shoulder. The brass key in my pocket felt warm against my palm, a small, solid truth in a world that was losing its grip on physics. A faint, new scratch appeared on the polished linoleum where my boot had just been, a thin white line against the dark, shifting surface, proof that my physical presence was no longer aligned with the room's perception of its own continuity. The metallic tang in the air now tasted of static electricity, a charge building, promising a violent snap. Noticing the fresh scratch, I knelt, my reflection mirroring the action a full second later, its eyes still fixed beyond me, pulling a small, calibrated laser level from the cart, its cool metal familiar in my hand. I aimed it at the shifting linoleum. The red beam, usually a precise, unwavering line, flickered, then split into a dozen chaotic threads, dancing across the floor like agitated worms. A stillness settled, the air thick with the scent of ozone. Attempting to recalibrate, I pressed the power button, but the device hummed, then projected a perfect, miniature image of my own face onto the wall. Eyes wide with a silent scream. The brass key in my pocket felt heavy, a counterweight to the impossible. Stepping back, I watched the laser level, now lying on the floor, its single red beam slowly rotating, tracing an impossible spiral that seemed to pull the very light from the corridor into its center. Leaving the surrounding area in deeper shadow, the static electricity intensified, making the fine hairs on my arms stand on end. A silent chorus of dread. My professional training offered no protocol for a tool that mocked reality itself, leaving only the cold, hard fact of its failure. Watching the impossible spiral of light consume the corridor, a cold dread tightened its grip. The orderly's distorted words echoed, "If they do, keep walking." Gripping the heavy brass key, its familiar weight a small comfort against the rising panic, I pushed the supply cart forward. The linoleum, still rippling, pulled at my boots, making each step a deliberate effort. The air grew colder, thick with the metallic tang of ozone and something else, something like damp earth. The corridor stretched, elongating with each stride, the fluorescent lights flickering further and further apart, their hum fading into a low, guttural thrum. A stillness settled, the silence pressing in. Ahead, a door, usually leading to the linen closet, now showed a glimpse of driving rain and a distant, unfamiliar cityscape through its grimy window. My reflection, still delayed, moved with a strange, unnatural grace, its eyes fixed on something beyond my perception, a silent witness to the impossible. The fresh scratch on my arm, a persistent reminder, pulsed with a dull ache as I continued, compelled by the rule, leaving faint, shimmering trails on the viscous floor. Pushing through the thickening air, the cartwheels dragged, leaving deeper furrows in the viscous linoleum. The distant cityscape through the linen closet door shimmered. A mirage. A low, guttural thrum vibrated through the floor, rising into my boots, up my legs. A stillness settled, heavy and expectant. The metallic tang intensified, now mixed with the stale, forgotten scent of dust and ozone, a smell that clung to the back of my throat. The corridor narrowed, lights dying, plunging me into near darkness. Reaching the end, a heavy, unmarked steel door stood. Its surface was cold, damp. Pressing my palm against it, a deep, rhythmic vibration pulsed, a slow, mechanical heartbeat. A faint, acrid odor seeped from its seams. The fresh scratch on my arm throbbed, mirroring the door's pulse. Prying open a small, rusted panel with my heavy brass key, I found brittle, yellowed schematics. Hand-drawn diagrams depicted vast, interconnected chambers beneath the facility, detailing intricate conduits, energy flows, and patient classifications, all labeled with precise, chilling efficiency. This wasn't chaos. This was design. Tracing the brittle lines, the rhythmic vibration pulsed harder, shaking the schematics in my hand. The steel door shuddered. A low, grinding shriek tore through the air, echoing the schematic's intricate patterns. As the entire chamber began to tilt, throwing me against the cold, damp wall, the acrid smell of ozone burning my nostrils. Gasping for breath, I scrambled. The floor now a steep incline. Conduits overhead ruptured. Thick, black fluid sprayed across the ceiling, sizzling as it hit the dim, flickering lights, plunging the space into near total darkness, save for the faint, pulsing glow now emanating from the schematics themselves. Clutching the heavy brass key, I lunged for the small panel, desperate to reseal it. A sharp crack echoed. The panel slammed shut, catching my fingers, the metallic tang of blood mixing with the ozone, leaving a fresh, stinging laceration across my knuckles, mirroring the throb in my arm. The room stabilized. For now, releasing the panel, I pulled back my throbbing fingers. The fresh laceration across my knuckles pulsed, a stark red line against my pale skin. A low hum vibrated through the floor. The acrid smell of ozone still clung to the air, mixing with the sharp, metallic tang of my own blood. A stillness settled. Wiping my hands on my worn trousers, I felt the tremors run through my arms, a persistent internal vibration. The black fluid, thick and viscous, dripped slowly from the ruptured conduits overhead, sizzling faintly as it hit the cold metal floor. Gathering the schematics, I noted the dark, oily stains now marring their intricate patterns. The faint glow extinguished. My ears rang with a high-pitched whine, a new phantom pressure behind my eyes. Gripping the heavy brass key, its familiar weight a small comfort, I pushed myself upright, the memory of the tilting chamber a physical ache in my chest. The danger had passed, for now, leaving its indelible marks. Washing the grime from my hands, the fresh laceration on my knuckles stung. Gripping the heavy brass key, its cool weight a familiar anchor, I stepped into the staff break room. The air hung thick with the scent of stale coffee and burnt toast. The fluorescent lights above flickered, casting shadows that didn't quite match the objects below. A stillness settled. The reflection of the coffee machine in the polished table surface seemed to shimmer, slightly out of sync with the machine itself, a subtle lag in its metallic gleam. The manager, hunched over a lukewarm mug, slowly raised his head. His eyes, usually sharp, were milky white, rolled back, a faint, unsettling smile stretching his lips. The consumed items, he droned, his voice a low rasp, must always be accounted for, even if they are not there. He blinked, the smile vanishing, his gaze snapping back to the mug. Rough morning, Tvero? Need a refill? He took a long, loud sip, oblivious. I watched him, logging the words. Pushing past the lingering dread, I moved towards the vending machine. The glass front, usually clear, now showed a faint, oily sheen, distorting the colorful snacks within. Reaching for a packet of crackers, my fingers brushed against the glass, feeling a strange, dry velvet texture. The machine hummed, a low, resonant thrum that vibrated through my teeth, and the crackers inside seemed to shift, just slightly, as if settling into an impossible void. The high-pitched whine in my ears intensified, a constant reminder of the recent past, a persistent pressure behind my eyes. Pushing the buttons, I selected the cracker packet. The machine shuddered, a low groan escaping its metal casing. The crackers inside, already distorted by the oily glass, now seemed to melt, their edges blurring into the plastic. A faint, sweet smell, like burnt sugar and dust, wafted from the coin slot. The high-pitched whine in my ears intensified, pressing against my skull. Gripping the heavy brass key in my pocket, its cool weight, a familiar anchor, I felt the fresh laceration on my knuckles throb. The machine clicked, a hollow sound, and the selection light blinked out. The crackers were gone. Not dispensed, not stuck, but simply absent, leaving an empty space behind the velvet glass. The manager's words echoed, consumed items, accounted for, even if they are not there. Stepping back, I watched the empty slot. The hum of the machine settled back into its normal drone. The world appeared normal again, but the absence was real, a void where crackers had been. This was the job, to witness the impossible, to log the missing, to account for what never was. The cycle continued, indifferent to my understanding. My awareness changed nothing. I was merely the observer, the keeper of impossible ledgers.